Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Hello, everyone. This is Pam, de Café con Pam, the bilingual podcast that features Latine and people of the global majority who break barriers, change lives, and make this world a better place. Welcome to episode 366 of Café con Pam. Today, we have a conversation with Dra Maria Montero. This one is really important for many reasons. We talk about blindness. Blindness is a gender issue. Globally, there are 112 million more women than men living with vision loss, including blindness. Though 90% of blindness is avoidable, many barriers prevent both women and men from accessing eye health services, but these barriers can often be more problematic for women. These barriers differ around the world and across communities, but a lack of education, difficulty in accessing finances, and an inability to travel means that women and girls are disproportionately affected by blindness. Dra Maria is a mother and an ophthalmologist, and she's a surgeon for Orbis Flying Eye Hospital, a state-of-the-art aircraft that travels around the world to prevent avoidable blindness. Her passion for helping others propelled her to perform free cataract surgeries for people in places where access to care is limited. Dra Maria Montero completed her residency in ophthalmology at the Asociación para Evitar la Ceguera, APEC, in Mexico. And soon after, she started her subspecialty year on the anterior segment of the eye, focusing on the intricacies of cataracts because, quote, you can change a person's life in just 15 minutes with cataract surgery, quote. Dra Montero later served as head of the cataract department and teaching director at a hospital in Mexico, in la Ciudad de Mexico, in 2016. In her capacity as a doctor, Dra Montero was inspired to participate in campaigns to perform free cataract surgeries in underserved communities, which led her to found Orbis, a global eye care nonprofit where in January 2017, she joined the team working on the organization's Flying Eye Hospital, a fully accredited teaching hospital on a plane. This to train eye care professionals around the world that don't have access to it, including throughout Latin America. And of course, as a Latina, she is proud to support other professionals in her own community. When she first found Orbis, she finally understood the saying, do what you love and you'll never work again. Y bueno, listeners, this was kind of like a long interview, pero I think it's important to talk about the reasons why we bring guests like this. Dra Maria not only does incredible work with Orbis Flying Hospital, but también her dedication to making sure that people take care of their eyes. You'll hear it in the conversation, but I have paid much more attention to my eyesight now. And someone who wears glasses, I don't have a lot of prescription, but still I do get, I need to take care of my eyes. So I'll stop here and I'll let you enjoy my conversation with Dra Maria Montero.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Well, Dra Maria, welcome to Café con Pam.
Thank you so much, Pam, for having me.
Of course. Happy to chat about all the things. So the first question that we ask is, what is your heritage?
My heritage is I'm Mexican.
Born and raised?
Born and raised, yes.
And so how did you decide that you wanted to be a doctor?
My dad is an anesthesiologist, and also both of my grandparents were doctors in their age. They were my grandparents were general doctors, as it used to be. And then my dad went into anesthesiology. So I decided from a very young age that I wanted to be a doctor, just not an anesthesiologist, something else.
Why not an anesthesiologist? That's the whole word.
Because I didn't want to get involved in the mouth of people.
That's funny. But isn't it through IV?
It is, but also you get intubated so you can breathe. So there was to me at that age, it was a lot of spitting.
That's funny. Did you talk to your dad about it? I'm going to go into medicine, but not quite like what you do.
Yes. I mean, he was at first very glad that I wanted to be a doctor. And then when I told him that I didn't want to be an anesthesiologist, he was just like, okay, I'll guess I'll train someone else with all the knowledge that I have. You know how it is.
For sure. For sure. So you went into medicine, and is the path, porque you studied in Mexico, no?
I did, yeah.
So is the path you go into general medicine first and then you choose a specialty?
Exactly. Yeah. Here in Mexico, it's like you get out of high school at 18 and you go straight into med school. It's not like the US where you can go to college, do pre-med, have a little time to grow and know better. Like you go into med school at 18 and then you go study for 5 years. And then you do you do 1 year of internship, 1 year of social services, and then you're done. You're a doctor. You're a doctor, a physician, and a surgeon. That's what my diploma says.
Wow.
And then you do an exam. That's a national exam. It's like the match, I think, in the US, where you do apply to exams and then you compete with everybody else in the Republic, and then you get to pick your subspecialty. So I picked orthopedics.
That's very different from eyes.
That's very different from eyes. Yeah.
But do you go through a process of like, I guess through med school, you kind of like study everything in the body.
Exactly.
And then like orthopedics. So before we go into like the specialty, you also had this curiosity about your body.
Mm-hmm.
And you wanted to know how your body worked.
Exactly. That's why I wanted to be a doctor in the first place. To me, I couldn't live within my own self without knowing why things happen. Like, okay, you get a cut. And what's happening? Like, you get sick. Why are you getting sick? Since I'm like always hungry for knowledge and to know how things work, in my head, I just couldn't picture not knowing why things happen, and just other people telling me, oh, take this, take that, instead of knowing exactly why. So that's the reason that I went into med school, really.
And were you an inquisitive child, having doctor parents, grandparents? Were you asking, like, did you ask them questions, and what was their approach? What was their response?
Yes. I mean, I obviously played doctor with my sister since we were very, very young. I think that she was fed up with playing the same thing over and over again. And since I was very, very young, maybe in junior high or something like that, my dad started bringing me into the OR to see if that was actually what I wanted to do. So I didn't pass out. So I was like, oh, okay, this is fun, like baby steps first, like very easy surgeries at first, and then more and more and more complicated ones to see if I can handle it, and especially if I really liked it.
Right. How many siblings do you have?
Just one sister.
And she's not a doctor?
She's a lawyer.
Wow. Very different.
Yes. Very different.
Did she get the same experience of like, let me take you, like from your dad, let me take you to the OR to see if like maybe?
She didn't like it at all.
Like from the beginning, she was like zero.
From the beginning, she was like, I'm not going to be a doctor.
How funny. Okay, so you get to this place of choosing your specialty and you choose orthopedics. ¿Por qué?
Mm-hmm. I like to know how things work. And to me, orthopedics was a lot of like maybe playing with Legos, like, the physics. So if something is broken, there's a physics behind why you put a cast in a certain way or a screw in a certain way. And there was a lot of drawing, which I also love, involved. So I really liked it. And so I chose that first with my first exam, my national exam. And then when I was actually there, less than 3 months, I quit because this lifestyle is the thing that I didn't really like. Like, I didn't stop to think that almost all the surgeries are because people have accidents.
Ooh.
And so people have accidents, especially on the weekends. So nobody had a life. They couldn't do anything at all. And then the surgeries are very, very long. It's like 5 or 6 hours at least. And also they happen a lot at night.
Yes.
So it was very like eye-opening for me to see the people that were older than me and to see them, and that's lifestyle. So I decided that I didn't want that in my life because I wanted to be a mom at some point in my life. So I was like, this is not going to work. Like, how can I balance this if I want to have...
You're on call all the time.
Exactly. How can anybody balance this life when you want to have children?
Right.
So that's why I went into my second option, which was ophthalmology, which was eyes. And I'm really glad I did because it has everything in a little tiny eye. And it was so interesting.
It's funny you mentioned the no weekends because my brother just had an Achilles rupture.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened on a Thursday evening. But when you said it happens at night, and he was playing like soccer, like, you know, after work, you go play soccer. And like he literally like was about to sprint and like he literally heard the bop of the Achilles tendon, and it happened at night. And so we went to the ER at night. But it's interesting how in the US he didn't get surgery until the following Monday, I believe. Because the surgeon, and it was in the morning when the surgeon was available. So I don't know if they're like, it made me think if maybe there's a little bit more control. I mean, maybe an ER doctor, you have to be there all the time. But like the orthopedic surgeon was like, on my time at 10 a.m. on a Monday.
Yeah, it's different, and also like because of the health system, that's very different. So it depends a lot on which hospital you are working at. And in general, like people will do the surgeries at night if it's necessary. So
totally, if it's an emergency. So as a woman in medicine, how was it for you to go through med school, even choosing the specialties? Have you noticed any differences? How have you navigated the medical world as a woman?
Yeah, absolutely. Since I chose orthopedics.
Yeah.
And so it's it's the cliche subspecialty for men, right? So it's like seem like a carpenter or someone that's very strong and tough and everything. And here I was. I mean, I'm like this all the time. So I'm like pink and sparkles all the time. And I was like, I'm not going to change who I am because of what I'm doing. And a lot what is in orthopedics about knowing the movements, like how to reduce a fracture is not about strength, but how you do the movement. So it's being in control and having a special technique, knowing the technique instead of just being strong and brute. So that was not true, but it was like a very masculine environment per se. But I have always been like this. And so I'm like, no, I'm like, I don't know, legally blonde or something like that, but in health. I'm like, I'm going to stay who I am and I'm just going to keep doing it like I am. So it was different, but everybody respected it.
That's good. And so you say orthopedics, not my thing, all of the things that you just mentioned. Why was eyes your second option? I mean, I feel like it could be, if I was to go into medicine, I would be like, I want to do everything. I would probably do brain, frankly.
I also thought about like neurosurgery
Yes.
or something like that at the beginning because it sounds so cool and then you're inside someone's mind, right?
Yes.
I liked ophthalmology because the way that the eye works like a camera. And like I was saying before, in something that's so small, it has literally so many layers on the way that it works. And it's so perfect that to me, it's like magic. It's like not obvious at all how it works.
Mm.
So that's why I wanted to go into ophthalmology.
So you go into ophthalmology. How do you find Orbis?
When I went into ophthalmology, at first I decided as a subspecialty to do anterior segment, which is cataract surgery in trauma or in children. And I decided to do that because it's a surgery that's the most reproducible surgery in the entire planet. And with that surgery, within less than 15 minutes, you change someone's life completely. So I had the experience of doing that in the residency, in my fellowship. And I could see, literally, the change in someone's life and in children's life, especially. It was what really touched my heart to see, like, the way that they change their behavior when they're actually able to see.
Wow. Could you break it down for the people that don't know what a cataract is?
So a cataract is when the natural lens of the body, like I was saying before, the eye is like a camera. So if you think of the eye as a camera, then the lens of a camera. So at the beginning of your life, it's transparent. And then when you age or have a trauma or have coexisting disease like diabetic retinopathy, those things accelerate the process of getting this lens cloudy. So instead of being see-through, then you start getting the lens more like yellowish or white.
Huh.
So instead of being able to see through something that's transparent, people see through something that's yellow or white. So they end up not being able to see any light if they don't get a surgery.
Wow. And when you say trauma, this could be like through something hitting your eye or...
Like gotcha or a tennis ball or gotcha is like one of the fastest that occurs because the ball travels so fast.
Wow.
That if you don't have protection, then even if it's not an open trauma, if it just hits you and you get a cataract because of that. Mm-hmm.
So it could happen to anyone at any moment. It's not just age, or is it that is there a predisposition for people with diabetes or any type of other illness that comes with cataract?
Yes, with diabetes, you get a cataract earlier if your sugar levels are not controlled. So definitely, like the lens naturally starts to age around 50 or something like that. It varies on person to person too. I always say that it's like wrinkles. Some people get a lot of wrinkles, some do not. Some of us get gray hair, some people don't. So I cannot say for sure you're going to get a cataract in this exact year in your life. But everybody around 50 years old, the lens naturally starts to age. And then your eyesight gets a little bit blurry. The lights around, like in the car or at night, you start to see them like a halo around them. So those are early signs that your lens is getting blurry.
Is there a way to prevent it, or you just have to? It's wrinkles.
There's no way to prevent it. In general, it's wrinkles. But if you do have diabetic retinopathy, for example, you obviously need to get your insulin and your blood checked, your sugar levels checked every day, your sugar levels, and then at least once a year to have your eyes checked by an ophthalmologist. So
once
that
a year.
can see once a year at least if your sugar level is okay.
Okay. I haven't had my eyes checked for like 3 years. Making a note.
No.
So babies can be born with cataracts? What?
Yes, there can also be born with cataracts. They're like, it's a genetic predisposition too.
Oh my gosh. And there's so many things that could happen in the eyes. Like cataracts is just one, probably maybe one of the most known.
Exactly. Yes. It's one of the main reasons for blindness all around the world.
And it can be like you can go and clean the lens.
Exactly. And it's reversible. So that's why we work very hard on this 90% of all the people that live with some degree of blindness around the world. That blindness could be prevented or reverted. So
wow.
it's a number that's amazing, and that shouldn't be, obviously, if we could do something about it. So that's on the number that we focus and work on.
That's wild. Because I feel like sometimes, especially people that don't have a lot of access, so underserved communities, rural spaces, is like, oh, was my eye just started getting like a little like blurry? That's just part of life. And it's not even like the curiosity of go ask the question.
Exactly. And you know how it is also, like with cultures, like old people. I see it all over. I know for a fact here in Mexico how people think. Like, I don't want to burden anybody.
Right.
Like, I'm old. It's life. I'm just gonna stay here in a little corner and not make any noise at all. It's just part of life. And really, you give people life back when you the ability to be independent, to be able to move around. With this surgery, that, like I said, less than 15 minutes, it's done. They open their eyes, and almost immediately they can see better. And the next day, they can see like a lot better, almost perfect. So, like you were saying, it has to do a lot of like inequality, because a lot of these is also in low and middle income countries. Mm-hmm. And another fact is that over 55% of these people are women too.
Wow.
So it also has to do a lot with culture and gender bias to see like, maybe the women, you're not really the breadwinner in the house.
You don't need to see.
It's not really necessary. Like, why bother? Or maybe if it's not cataracts, for example, if it's glasses, there's in a lot of countries that we worked at, where to wear glasses, then you're not going to get a good husband.
Wow.
So we also try to get the word across that about all of these myths and biases.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
So many questions. Let's take a quick coffee break. I have so many questions, and I want to talk about Orbis because it's really cool, and it's been around for a long time.
It is.
So let's take a quick coffee break. Okay.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Dra Maria, do you drink coffee?
I do.
Are you a warm hot coffee or cold coffee drinker?
Well, in the day it starts warm.
Then it gets
but
cold.
Then with my daughter, exactly, it's almost always cold.
I understand. I have a mug warmer, like a little thing, and I always use ceramic mugs for that reason, because I don't have a daughter to blame, but it's just like I get caught up in work or I get on a call, and I do like my coffee warm, so that might be a good investment.
Yes.
There's a cup. I'm not going to mention the name because they're not sponsoring, but there's a cup that keeps your coffee warm. There's a mug, kind of like a tumbler, like what you have, that keeps your coffee warm. It's just, I personally think it's extravagantly expensive. I think it's worth it. It's just not worth it for me to make that kind of investment yet. I don't travel enough with it. I think it's for people that go places. You can like, if you're in the subway, bring your expensive thing because it will keep your coffee warm. But for me, it's like, no. Yeah,
and I'm also okay with it. I'm not like, if it's warm, it's warm. If it gets colder throughout the day, it's okay.
Coffee is coffee.
Coffee's coffee, exactly.
How do you drink it? Do you make it at home?
Yeah, at home with milk and sugar.
Just regular?
Just regular coffee.
Café
not
con
the
leche?
Correct way. Exactly, café con leche. Not the correct way, according to my boyfriend. He's a purist.
Yes, the purists, they exist. I know. I mean, yes, it's a very different kind of culture. Yeah, on my end, I have my regular, also regular schmegular, coffee with, my mom introduced me to powdered milk. In Mexico es como nido, but here we don't have nido, so it's just like whole milk and powder. And one day she was like, put it in your coffee. And I was like, I don't know, is this dangerous? And it's been dangerous. And so it's whole milk, because sometimes people think it's half and half in powder, which is not. It's whole milk. And so it's a whole thing. So I am still drinking my coffee.
I have to try that. Sounds very good.
I know. It makes it very creamy. Let's get back to the show, because I have a lot of questions.
Bring it up.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
You go into your specialty. You're like, let me go into this subspecialty, because you got exposed to this 15-minute surgery that totally changes lives, and you go into like what do we call this specialty? The subspecialty.
Anterior segment. It's a cataract surgery. Yeah.
And so, how does it work? Like, do you go in there and clean the lens? Like, do you remove the cloud?
You remove the cloud. So the lens, it's contained in a little bag that's suspended, a see-through bag that is suspended in the eye. And so what you do is you go in by a small but very, very small incision, a 2-millimeter incision.
Wow.
You go in there with a little tiny knife. You open the eye, and then you open that bag and aspirate the lens out of the eye.
Qué miedo.
The incision is so small that it doesn't even need a suture.
Wow. It's like a paper cut.
In most of the cases, because it's self-sealing, which is completely and totally amazing. And it's usually done, obviously, in adults with only eye drops, just topical anesthetics. So the patient is wide awake. They don't even need anesthesia or anything.
Wow. So wild that it's such a quick, thing. I don't want to say fix, but it is. And people could go years without being able to see.
There's lack of information, and lack of access, lack of knowledge. But it's such a quick, like I said, it's the most reproducible surgery in the world, in the entire body.
Wow.
And it's so small. Like I said, it's 2 millimeters. You go in, you aspirate the cloudy lens, and you replace it with a teeny tiny plastic lens in its place. And then you can see. And nowadays we have lenses, artificial intraocular lenses, that give you the ability to see far, a medium, and close distance too. So it's obviously life-changing, and for a child it's also completely life-changing. It gives them back the opportunity to have a life, to be able to go to school, be independent, and not be a burden to their families. And then there's a lot of stigma behind that too. So
totally. Well, let's talk about that, because on the Orbis site, they talk about blindness, gender inequality for women and girls, and how there are 112 million more women than men living with vision loss. This includes blindness and so many things that I don't know how to pronounce. But that number is wild. 112 million more women than men living with vision loss.
Exactly. Yeah, like I was saying, it's because in a lot of the countries, women are not seen as necessary on the workforce, or they have the easier job to be like the homemaker or the caretaker for the children, and that's it. Or they don't want women out of their houses too. Or like I was saying, little girls don't get glasses because they don't seem pretty enough, and then they're not going to get in the future a good husband, for example. So there's a lot of inequality here too. And also, if there is, if people have the resources to do a surgery on it's a boy or a girl, they're almost always going to choose the boy, because that's the one that's going to go to school, or is going to be the one that works to maintain and support their family instead of the girl.
That's wild. Back to you and finding Orbis, you had this subspecialty that you were telling me about. And then how did you say, I'm going to go on a plane and help people see better?
Well, it was actually like, I don't know, serendipity magic. I saw it on a social media post.
Wow.
Someone from my friends group liked it, and then the algorithm suggested it to me because of that. And I was like, what's that? So I went into it, like the web page, and of course I was surprised that I haven't heard from it before. And there was a little link, there still is, a little link that says, do you want to work with us? And I was like, man, maybe it's a long shot, but I mean, why not? So I filled the form out, I sent out my CV, and 6 months later, I had completely forgotten about it. And 6 months later, my former boss called me and was like, okay, are you able to come to Bangladesh in like 2 months? And I was
Wow.
like, oh, okay. Sounds great. Why not? Yes, let's do it. And that was 2017. So it's been a little while now.
So to give people some background, Orbis.org is an organization that is the only eye care nonprofit that delivers sight-saving programs in over 200 countries and territories. And so it's global, and you have, like, basically you hop on a plane and you go places and you help people with their eyes, like in a very simplified way.
We do have a lot of programs in a lot of countries. We have programs in over 200 programs, even if it's like for refraction, meaning eyeglasses, or like treatment for diseases. We have those programs too in country. We have 16 offices around the world. So we do have several different programs around the globe. Where I work specifically is this branch, this little part of Orbis, which is the Flying Eye Hospital. So we have an airplane that used to be it was donated to us by FedEx, and it's an MD-10 airplane that's completely renewed, refurbished, and it's also fully accredited as a hospital.
Wow.
So it is very exciting to see that it works. Like, it is actually an airplane that can fly, and it's actually a hospital where you can do surgery.
In the plane.
In the plane, yes. So both things work. I mean, those are two very different, very difficult things to maintain, an airplane or a hospital.
Yeah.
And then you have this, that it's both, and it works.
That's wild.
Yeah, it always gets me very excited to see the amount of work and engineering that went behind making this work. So we have this hospital that has an operating room, that has a classroom, that has a recovery room. You don't feel like you are on an airplane unless you go and turn to the side and see the little airplane windows. But otherwise, you feel like you're in your clinic because you have absolutely everything. It's like the biggest mobile device. It's the hospital. It's the Flying Eye Hospital itself.
That's like, I have the page open and I'm looking at, like, it really is. You have an OR, you have like all the things.
Everything that you would find in a regular clinic and more, we have it there. So the purpose of this is, again, since there's a lot of lack of access to eye health in the world, the idea is to bring eye health and like the process of teaching people to the trainees themselves, because we are trying to teach people how to fish. We are trying to make this sustainable so that when we leave, people know how to do this by themselves. We are not the ones that are going to be doing all the surgeries like in one day, Rambo style. We are more about teaching the local people how to do the surgeries. And so that when we leave, they can actually do it themselves, because otherwise we are not solving the main issue, which is to have trained doctors, trained physicians do the surgeries in these places. So that's why we do this. And we not only train other ophthalmologists, we also train the entire team. We teach the anesthesiologists, we teach the nurses, the biomeds. There's teaching happening all the time in the Flying Eye Hospital. And so there's a lot of learning, and we also teach them how to work as a team together so that they can have better results in their surgeries. So yeah, that's the way that we approach this at the Flying Eye Hospital.
That's so cool. So it's a flying eye hospital. So it's an eye hospital on a plane that flies, and
Yes.
it also is a school.
It is. Mm-hmm.
That's
It
it.
is. That's
Just a little bit. But so I'm very curious. Do you do surgeries like on the air, or you park?
No. We are parked. We are parked.
Like,
Yeah,
those
we
tiny
need stability.
tools with a little turbulence.
Exactly. You need the stability to do that on the grounds. And the hospital itself, inside the belly, we have all the generators that the plane needs to make its own energy, and we have our own medical gases and ways to bring water into the plane and everything. So it's also a self-sustainable airplane.
Wow.
And so we do the surgeries on the ground. And part of the way that we do this is we bring the trainees to the Flying Eye Hospital, where we have the latest technology that you would find in ophthalmology. But at the same time, we rotate in their own hospital so that it's sustainable too. So we do teach them with everything that we have, but then we also go to their hospital to see whatever tools they have and help them get the most out of the tools and consumables and equipment that they already have. And if it needs maybe some maintenance, then we have our biomeds teaching their biomeds how to repair it. Because a lot of times they have the machines, but they don't have anyone to fix it. So that's why they don't use it. So like I said, it's like we do rotation. So yes, you spend part on the airplane, but we also go to your own hospital to teach you how to make this more efficient in your own environment.
That's cool. So how does the plane, how do you decide where to go?
Well, we do have country offices, and we do get invitations. So we need to get invited, obviously, from the country, from the ophthalmology society. And also, we need to see that there's an actual need for the training and the conditions for the program too. Like if it's with the airplane, there's a lot of specifics that I will not get into because of the size of the airplane, etc. But that's like a technicality.
You have to have a landing place.
Yeah. We have different types of programs where we don't bring the plane, but we do send our team of ophthalmologists, nurses, or whoever is needed over to the hospital by themselves, and they do the training by themselves. So that's called a home-based training. And we also, with the pandemic, as you can imagine, we had to switch everything to virtual like the rest of the world, right? So we switched to virtual for 2 years, and we did virtual programs.
Is that CyberSite?
On CyberSite, yes, on cybersite.org. You can find everything about ophthalmology. You can find videos, courses, lectures, whatever you want about ophthalmology. You can find it there. We also have a consultation link. So when doctors have a special case that they don't know exactly what it is, they upload their patient's data, and then they get feedback from experts all over the world.
Wow.
Which is very cool and very useful. Like you have a global expert helping you figure this out.
Yeah.
We also have artificial intelligence that can help you grade what diabetic retinopathy stage your patient is at, or the grade of glaucoma. So you upload it, and artificial intelligence will tell you based on their programmatics, like how bad it is. So yeah, cybersight is great, and I encourage everyone in this field to check it out.
For sure. I'm curious if you have any, like a story that maybe you were on the plane, like one of the trips that like moved you that you want to share with us. You can.
So just recently we were we were in Zambia, and this past September and October, and we were there, and there was all these kids that had congenital cataract, so they were born with cataract.
Those babies that we talked about.
Those babies that we were talking about. And there was this teeny tiny baby that was less than a year old that had bilateral cataract, so cataract on both her eyes. And so we did the surgery on one of her eyes because you cannot usually do both eyes at the same time. So you do one first, make sure that everything's okay with that eye, and then you go on to the next.
Oh, so you have to like test it kind of?
I know. You have to just wait, because as any surgery in the body, you just have to wait to see that there's no infection, for example, that everything's controlled, so that each eye has its own healing time, let's say.
Okay.
So we did the surgery on one eye, and then the following day, we were there. There's usually like people that are visiting and want to watch the post-op clinic. And there's people there. The mom is there with the baby, and the volunteers, the hands-on trainee, Dr. Chimosi was there, and so they unpatched the baby, and just I always get emotional. So just to see the face of the baby, because she was amazed of all the light that she could see, and then she turned and looked at her mother for the first time in her life.
Oh my gosh!
So that's just for me so rewarding to be able to see very often.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so she was surprised, and she was touching her face because she didn't, like, she recognized her from the voice, obviously, and the smell, but she hadn't seen her in her life.
Like she literally couldn't see.
Yes, those cataracts were so dense that she could only see shadows in front of her.
That's wild. And so then you did the other eye, and probably it was just as touching.
But yes, to be able to see that reaction was, it's always amazing to see. Like I was saying, the change also. This is like a little baby, but in older kids who can speak and tell you, it's also like, wow, mom, I can see, or I haven't seen this before. I cannot believe how bright this is. Like, oh, so this is a pen. Oh,
right.
Okay. Because they have never seen it before. And they change, obviously, their personality too, because even if it's not a super dense cataract, people are confined. Children are confined into a little space because they feel like they're going to hurt themselves all the time, or they don't know how to walk by themselves, and they feel like it's a dangerous place that they're at all the time. And then you do the surgery, and you can see the change in their personalities to be more lively and more chatty and more social, because they can see other people, and they can their enthusiasm and their personality gets 10 times better with it.
Yeah, because they get to experience the world different. That's so cool. So tell us all the places and spaces where we can find out more about Orbis, about you. Drop the links.
Okay, so you can find more about Orbis at www.orbis, which is ORVIS.org. And that is our webpage where you can find everything about us, all the things that we were talking about the airplane, our missions, where we do programs all around the world, who works there, what they do. You will find a lot of cool stories about other experiences all over the world. And the other link is for CyberSite. So it's www.cybersite and then .com.
And we have everything linked in the show notes.
Excellent. Thank you, Pam. And that's the place where the eye health professionals, not only ophthalmologists, but like I was saying, we also have material for anesthesiologists, nurses, biomedical engineers, optometrists, COMTs, everybody that's related to eye health can find something or everything, which is going to be very useful. Even if you're a med student that's thinking into going into eye health, or if you are already a trained ophthalmologist, I'm sure you will find something on there that will be helpful for you and your practice and obviously your patients.
For sure. That's awesome. Well, thank you for this. This is very cool and like so good to learn. One more question for the audience, for the listeners. So you mentioned that, because I've been thinking about this, that we need to get our eyes checked once a year.
Mm-hmm. We do. Everybody.
Are there any questions to ask? Because like you mentioned some things, and I've been reading the Orbis site, some of these things can be prevented, and sometimes there's symptoms that don't look like symptoms, but they could be symptoms. And so is there, like, specifically women, because, you know, gender inequality, is it something that we need to think about?
Yes. You know how they say that the eyes are the windows to the soul?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that the eyes are the windows to the soul, but they're the windows for the body.
Wow.
Like 100%. The eyes will show you if you are in an early stage of a disease elsewhere. Like they will tell you if you have a diabetic retinopathy, that means that your entire body has something already to do with diabetes. They will tell you if you have blood pressure. They can also tell you if you have, for example, arthritis or something of inflammatory disease going on in your body. So that's why it's super important that everybody, even if you don't have a disease itself or pain or something in your eyes, you get them checked once a year, because they could really tell your ophthalmologist something else entirely about your own body that you didn't even know.
Wow.
And another very important thing is for children. So our brains learn how to see until we're 6 years old. So if a child cannot see with an eye or both eyes, and it's not corrected before 6, the brain doesn't learn how to see anymore.
Wow.
So even if you correct, like, for example, there's ptosis where the eyelid is a little bit droopy. So if you don't correct that before 6, that eye, it's not going to be able to see, even if you later on correct it. So that eye is going to be a lazy eye or an amblyopic eye. And then if you cannot see properly with both eyes, you are not going to be able to see in 3D ever.
Whoa.
Your driving skills, if you wanted to be a surgeon, a pilot, an astronaut, or all of these things get cut off because you don't have the ability to see proper depth in your life. So you are giving a child all these opportunities in life if you bring them to your ophthalmologist before they're 6 and get their eyes checked.
That's wild. And what about screens? We live in such an age of screens.
Yes. So there were a lot of studies made and conducted during the pandemic, of course, because like we were all stuck inside with screens and everything. And so there is now the knowledge that little kids shouldn't be exposed more than 1 or 2 hours at the most. And I'm saying this like less than 6 years old.
Whoa.
To a screen per day, because the screen is so close that then they get myopic, because the focus that the eye has changes, switches to having to focus something that's very close, where our eyes are meant to see afar for things on that age.
Wow. So limit your screen. What about for adults? Still limit your screen time?
For adults, we're done. For adults, I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, you can use it. It's like you're gonna get dry eye for sure, because when you are trying to focus so much of your time on something, then you don't blink, and that's why when you're reading a lot or you're on a screen a lot, you feel this like urge to scratch your eyes. Don't.
Tell me about it.
Everything gets blurry, and it's because of that. It's because you don't blink enough, so you don't have enough tears in your eyes to lubricate them. So that's very easily solved with just lubricant drops.
Well, that's good. I do have my drops that I religiously use because I have been told that I have dry eye. Probably because I don't blink. So it makes sense. Well, Doctora María Jose, thank you so much for coming to Café con Pam. This was so informative and so many levels. Thank you so much for all your work. For Orbis, definitely listeners, check out orbis.org. It's a really cool organization. They do really awesome things. I was just reading like everything because they also have a lot of information that's could be useful even for people like me that live in a place with a lot of privilege and access. You get to learn how the disparities still exist. So thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you for having us.
Of course.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Bueno, listeners, that was my conversation with Doctora Maria. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do let me know what resonated with you. I hope you schedule your eye appointment because, like she said, at least once a year you need to get your eyes checked. It's really important. And if you're a woman, especially more important because we get a lot of, we're still dealing with a lot of disparities. It is what it is. That's the truth of the reality that we live in. Y bueno, if this is your first time here, thank you so much for being a Café con Pam. I hope you stay. I hope you click follow, subscribe, whatever the button says in whichever platform you're listening to. The two most popular ones are Apple Podcast and Spotify. So if you are in one of those, please click follow. If you feel called to leaving stars and comments, that helps a lot with the reach for the podcast. We are constantly looking to increase downloads, and a download means someone who listens to the show. So if you think someone will benefit from this episode, please share it with them, with whoever you are thinking of, your friends, your familia. Do send this episode to them, por favor. We are on pretty much all the platforms now. You can listen to this episode if you just want audio. The audio gets released on YouTube, and then later in the week, we release the video on YouTube. So you have options. You have option, listeners. Bueno, let's stay connected. I love it when you screenshot and tag me. I really love it when you send me messages. Last week's episode about summer planning prompted a lot of conversation. So I'm so glad you actually took action. It made me so happy. All the comments, all the DMs that you sent me with the results of your questions and how you feel about it afterwards was so cool. So please keep doing that. It makes a difference. And it also makes me, while I'm looking at the downloads, receiving your notes makes it feel more tangible. There's people actually on the other side listening. So I appreciate that. And on that note, let's stay connected at Café con Pam Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, Café con Pam on YouTube. Y bueno, listeners, thank you so much for being here today. Como siempre, stay shining.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.